I remember the arena feeling calm in a way that never lasts, like a breath held too long. The lights were normal, the ring untouched, the crowd talking instead of roaring, yet something felt delayed, suspended, as if time itself hesitated. People shifted in their seats, not excited, just unsettled, glancing toward the stage without knowing why. Commentary filled space with routine words, but even those sounded thinner, unsure. It was the kind of calm that doesn't promise action, only consequence, and nobody could explain why their stomachs tightened slowly, quietly, nervously together again before anything actually happened there tonight. There were pauses between reactions that shouldn't exist on live television. Applause died early. Laughter never started. Screens flashed graphics that felt irrelevant, almost insulting, against the mood building inside the building. The commentary team spoke softer, correcting themselves, stepping around statements as if afraid of being wrong. The crowd noticed this hesitation and mirrored it, uncertainty spreading like a quiet stain. Everyone sensed that the show was drifting away from control, not exploding, but sinking. Lower energy filled the air, heavy breaths shared by thousands, waiting without clarity or comfort for answers that never came, yet somehow felt close. Security along the ramp stood straighter than usual, eyes scanning nothing in particular. Camera operators adjusted positions repeatedly, then stopped, unsure where to aim. Even the ring announcer delayed a simple introduction, voice catching before words formed. The audience felt that delay like pressure in their ears. This was not anticipation for a surprise. It was awareness of disruption. Something was coming that didn't fit the night's rhythm, something that would not ask permission. It hovered, unspoken, unavoidable, thick with consequence, making people brace without knowing why, gripping seats, phones, hands, hearts, breath, time, patience, courage, hope, certainty, safety, comfort. The screen went dark without warning, not dramatically, just abruptly. No music followed. No graphics rescued the silence. The darkness stayed longer than comfort allows, long enough for fear to surface without being named. Da. The crowd didn't boo or cheer. They waited, frozen, listening to their own breathing. Commentary stopped entirely, not scripted silence, but genuine hesitation. This absence spoke louder than any entrance ever could. It reminded everyone how fragile control really was, how easily power could shift without noise, warning, mercy, or explanation, leaving nerves exposed, minds racing, doubts blooming. Unchecked, unanswered, unresolved, heavy, shared, collective, public, raw. When the lights returned, they didn't reveal motion at first, just a silhouette, still and centered, refusing urgency. Jade Cargill stood there without introduction, without acknowledgement, her presence instantly bending the atmosphere. No pose. No smile. Just wait. The arena didn't erupt, collapsed inward. People realized this wasn't a moment designed for them. This was something imposed. And in that instant, discomfort became undeniable truth. The return felt less like arrival and more like judgment, standing quietly, daring anyone to look away, breathe, clap, escape, rationalize, process, or pretend safety still existed here. Tonight, together, exposed, watching, waiting, silent. She did not move quickly, and that was what unsettled everyone most. Each step down the ramp felt deliberate, almost reluctant, as if forward motion itself was a decision carrying consequences. The silence followed her, not broken by cheers, not challenged by boos. Some people raised their phones, then lowered them again, unsure whether recording this felt right. Commentary returned in fragments, voices strained, searching for words that wouldn't make the moment worse. No one framed this as triumph. They spoke as if documenting an incident, not celebrating a return, and that distinction changed everything permanently in that building. Faces in the crowd told conflicting stories at once. Awe sat beside fear. Nostalgia clashed with regret. Some stood frozen, others remained seated, arms crossed tightly, as if protecting themselves. A few clapped instinctively, then stopped when they realized how alone the sound felt. This was not a shared reaction, it was a divided one. The arena felt split into emotional factions that could not reconcile what they were seeing with what they felt. That division hummed louder than music ever could, vibrating through the structure itself. Jade reached ringside and paused, resting a hand on the apron. That pause felt intentional, almost confrontational, forcing the audience to sit with her presence a moment longer. She didn't look around theatrically. Her gaze stayed forward, unfriendly, unreadable. Commentary attempted context, then abandoned it, admitting uncertainty without saying the word. There was no reassurance offered. The ring suddenly felt smaller, less safe, as if it could barely contain the gravity stepping onto it. When she finally entered, the ropes seemed to give way reluctantly, like even they understood. Inside the ring, she stood and did nothing. No acknowledgement of the crowd, no signal to the back, just stillness. The audience noise flattened into an uncomfortable hum. This was not dominance displayed through action. It was dominance asserted through restraint. People realized they were waiting for permission to react, and that permission was never coming. The moment stretched until discomfort became the only shared emotion left. In that stretch, people questioned whether they wanted this at all, whether they were ready for what her presence implied. When the lights finally shifted again, the moment did not resolve. There was no payoff, no confrontation, no immediate direction. Jade remained, and then she didn't. She exited as quietly as she arrived, leaving behind a ring full of questions and a crowd unsure whether to process what they had seen or what it meant. The show moved on technically, but nothing felt continuous anymore. The night had been split in two before and after, and everyone knew the after would be heavier to carry. Backstage, the silence was louder. Conversations stopped when she passed, even though she said nothing. Wrestlers who had prepared for matches suddenly questioned whether those matches mattered. Some leaned against walls, arms folded, staring at floors, recalculating careers in real time. Fear wasn't dramatic or panicked. It was quiet, professional, and deeply personal. This wasn't about losing a spot. It was about losing certainty. The locker room had always been competitive, but now it felt exposed, like a structure that had just discovered a crack in its foundation. Producers whispered instead of argued. Authority figures checked phones repeatedly, scanning messages they didn't want to read. There was no clear plan communicated, no confident statement to rally around. Pressure crept upward, from talent to management, from management to executives, from executives into public view. Everyone realized this moment had escaped containment. It wasn't scripted chaos. It was real uncertainty unfolding in front of millions, and no one had rehearsed how to respond to that. Media reaction hit before the show even ended. Headlines framed the return as controversial, unsettling, irresponsible, necessary, overdue, dangerous. Analysts argued not about outcomes, but about intent. Social feeds filled with divided reactions, some calling it powerful, others calling it reckless. Very few called it enjoyable. That distinction mattered. This wasn't being consumed as entertainment. It was being dissected like an event with consequences, and those consequences began pressing inward on everyone involved, especially her. Jade felt it immediately. Legacy stopped being theoretical. Every step now carried interpretation, every silence rewritten as statement. Friends reached out cautiously. Family members asked questions she couldn't easily answer. This return wasn't just public, it was personal. The weight followed her home, sat with her at night, waited in the morning. Being present without explanation had made her powerful, but power without clarity isolates quickly, and isolation has its own cost. The locker room never fully settled again. Trust shifted, confidence thinned. Wrestlers trained harder, not inspired but threatened. Management tightened schedules, added meetings, spoke in careful language. Everyone moved forward, but no one moved comfortably. The return had done its damage without throwing a single strike, and that reality forced a difficult admission. Sometimes the most disruptive force is simply someone reminding you how fragile your place really is. Days passed, but the moment didn't age. Clips circulated without context, replayed endlessly, stripped of sound, then replayed with commentary, dissected line by line. Each version felt different, none comforting. Public debate grew sharper. Fans argued over responsibility, intention, and readiness. Was this brave or careless, necessary or cruel? The company released neutral statements that satisfied no one. Silence became strategy, but silence also became accusation, and that tension tightened daily. Inside, plans were redrawn repeatedly. Creative direction shifted, then shifted again. People worried less about storylines and more about perception. One wrong move could turn discomfort into backlash. Authority figures felt cornered not by outrage, but by uncertainty. They couldn't lean into the moment, but they couldn't undo it either. The return had created a problem without a clear solution, and that problem demanded constant attention, draining energy from everything else. Jade watched from a distance, aware that her presence alone had become a variable everyone was trying to solve. Hadn't said anything, but silence had made her louder. Every potential appearance was debated intensely. Would it escalate fear or diffuse it? Would explanation weaken the moment or finally ground it? The burden of choice pressed in, heavier than any physical challenge she had faced. Being dominant without speaking had power, but it also demanded responsibility she could not avoid forever. Privately, doubt surfaced. Not regret, but questioning. Was the line crossed intentional, or had it moved beneath her feet? She had wanted to return on her terms, but terms change when thousands react in ways you can't predict. Family conversations grew more serious. Friends expressed concern masked as support. The cost of being uncompromising revealed itself not in headlines, but in quiet moments alone. The industry adjusted outwardly, but internally it braced. Wrestlers looked over shoulders. Executives measured words. Fans waited for clarification that might never come. The return had succeeded in one undeniable way. It made everyone feel something they couldn't easily name or dismiss. And that feeling lingered, unresolved, demanding either confrontation or acceptance, neither of which felt safe. Time did not soften the memory. It sharpened it. The entrance replayed in minds during unrelated moments, intruding without invitation. It became a reference point, not for excitement, but for vulnerability. People spoke about it carefully, as if careless words might trigger something again. The industry prides itself on control, on presentation, on knowing where the line is. This moment proved the line could be crossed without spectacle, without warning, simply by refusing to reassure. Jade remained absent, and that absence grew heavier than presence. Speculation filled the void, but nothing satisfied it. Fans wanted explanation, apology, escalation, closure. None arrived. The company moved forward with programming, but trust felt altered. The idea that everything was planned felt weaker now. People understood that sometimes the most impactful moments are the ones nobody fully prepared for, including the person at the center of them. For Jade, the weight became internalized. Legacy is often discussed as something built over time. Sometimes it crystallizes in a single moment that redefines everything before and after. This return did that, whether she intended it or not. She was no longer just measured by performance, but by impact. An impact once released can't be recalled. It lingers in others long after you've moved on. The uncomfortable truth settled slowly. This wasn't a comeback designed to please. It wasn't a moment meant to trend happily or unite fans. It was a disruption that exposed how dependent the industry is on predictability. By breaking that, she forced everyone to confront why they watch, why they cheer, and what they expect from the people in the ring. That confrontation didn't feel good, but it felt honest. In the end, the question wasn't whether she would return again or how. The question was quieter and harder. When someone comes back and takes control without asking, without explaining, without comforting, what does that say about the system that allowed it to feel so unsettling? And when the silence finally breaks, will anyone be ready for what it reveals?